With quarantine and cooking and baking at home, I think this is a really easy, simple project to make. You can just take whatever's in your refrigerator or in your pantry. Don't overthink too much, what you're gonna put on it. Hi, I'm Melissa Weller. I'm the chef and author of A Good Bake, and today I'm gonna show you how to make focaccia. To get started, the first thing we're going to make is a poulish, and a poulish is a pre-ferment, which means it's something that's been fermented before you mix your dough. Equal parts water and flour and just a little bit of commercial yeast. 120 grams of water, a 1/16 of a teaspoon of commercial yeast. Commercial yeast is essentially, it means fresh yeast, active dry yeast, and instant yeast. It means not sourdough starter. 120 grams of bread flour. Poulish helps add stretch to the dough, and it also helps make the dough a little bit more flavorful. All I'm trying to do when I'm mixing the poulish is just make sure that there are no lumps of flour. It is essentially going to change over time into something that's really smooth and homogeneous and bubbly.
What a good camera kid.
That's
Look,
great.
you're like already.
You let it ferment overnight or for 12 hours or so until it's nice and ripe and it floats in water. So this is poulish that I mixed yesterday evening, and it's about 16 hours old. And you can see that it's really bubbly along the sides. I can tell by the way the bubbles are formed that it's ready to go. But if you're not sure, one easy way to know if you should use it in a recipe is to just gently pinch off a piece, and it should float in some water. You can make your poulish ahead of time. You can make it 2 days ahead of time if you want. And as soon as it passes the float test, just stick it in your refrigerator and wait until you're ready to use it. It could probably stay in your refrigerator for a couple of days. It's really, really flexible that way. To mix the dough for the poulish, I get my bowl out, and I would normally just scoop all of the poulish into the bowl. But I'm gonna do a quick, easy trick, and I am going to take my water from my dough and pour some of it in to the poulish and the rest into the bowl. And then I'm gonna just sort of shake this to loosen it up so that I'm not losing any of the poulish. Once your poulish is ready, the next step is to make your focaccia dough. To the water and the poulish, I'm gonna add my all-purpose flour. And I like using all-purpose flour in my focaccia because I think it makes a more tender crumb. And I already have the poulish is for stretching the dough, so I like to use the bread flour for that. And then the all-purpose flour is for mixing the dough because I like it to be a little bit tender. Mix it on low just until it comes together and there are no dry flour lumps. I mix the water and the poulish and the flour together for about 2 to 3 minutes. I just want to combine everything. I don't want to develop the gluten just yet. Now I'm going to let it rest for about 30 minutes. That's called an autolyse. And I haven't added the salt and I haven't added the commercial yeast, the instant yeast, to the dough yet because I want the gluten to form, and the gluten will be inhibited a little bit if you add the salt to it or if you add the yeast to it. So what I do is I just put a little pile of my salt on one part of the top of the dough and the yeast on the other. The dough's been autolysing for 30 minutes and I'm gonna finish mixing it. First, I'm gonna mix it on low speed for 2 minutes just to help incorporate the salt and the yeast. And then I'm gonna increase the speed of the mixer to medium high and let the dough mix for another 2 to 3 minutes. So I'm mostly looking for the dough to clear the sides of the bowl within the 2 to 3 minutes. This ferments for 2 hours, and halfway through we're going to give the dough a fold, which basically means folding it like it's a letter. And the purpose of doing that is to help build the gluten and redistribute the yeast while it's fermenting. So I usually like to cover this with a kitchen towel or a piece of plastic wrap. The dough has fermented in the bowl for 1 hour, and I'm gonna give it a turn. And the purpose of giving it a turn is to help disperse the yeast and develop the gluten. And then I'm gonna recover it, and I'm gonna let it ferment for 1 more hour. So the dough has fermented for 2 hours, and I'm adding olive oil to the pan so that the focaccia dough doesn't stick to the surface of the pan, but also this is what makes a beautiful crispy crust. Now I'm gonna scoop with my fingers the dough out onto the oiled pan. I'm pushing down with my fingers, which is called dimpling, and that's just sort of helping me stretch the dough out. And I wanna stretch the dough out so it fills the entire pan. So this will take a little bit of time to stretch the dough out because the gluten wants to make it shrink back. I've got it stretched out about as far as it will go. And now I'm gonna let it rest for 20 minutes to relax a little bit, and then I'm gonna stretch it some more. 20 minutes, and I'm going to stretch out the focaccia a little bit more in the pan. So I like to lift up and under and just give it a nice little pull, and then I dimple a little bit more. It should slide around from the olive oil. Now it's stretched to fit the pan, and now all we have to do is wait for it to proof about 40 to 45 minutes. Now that the focaccia is in the pan and shaped, we can put some toppings on it. And I went through my refrigerator. I found broccolini that I had roasted and some steamed broccoli that I had for my son. I found some bacon. And with the bacon, I cooked the bacon part way. If you bake the focaccia for 30 minutes, you don't want to have bacon that's already cooked all the way through, or else it will get too hard. I had a whole bag of shallots. And then I had cheeses left over from a Christmas cheese plate. I have some leftover spinach, and I had some heavy cream from eggnog. You can put any kind of ingredient on. I think it's how much to put on your focaccia. If it's too heavy, it's gonna weigh it down too much, and the ingredients are gonna get too wet, and the dough will get soggy. The heavy cream, I just whipped it up in my mixer, and then I'm just gonna use an offset spatula to spread it on. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put my cheeses on it. I'm just gonna crumble the blue cheese over the surface. Then the brie. Cheese and bacon, I think nothing else could be better, right?
Hey, Wyatt, it must be really nice having a mom that bakes you food all the time, huh?
Yeah. He's trying to eat the bacon.
Wyatt, what's your favorite thing on focaccia?
Bacon. Bacon. Let's do the bacon. I've got all these shallots. Focaccia, I think of it as like a deep dish pizza, but I also think that focaccia, in my mind, doesn't usually have, it's usually pretty simple. I love putting molten salt on my anything, actually. And then I have some chili flakes. Some sesame seeds. And then spinach can go on the top of this. Now that the focaccia is topped, I'm gonna put it in a preheated 425-degree oven for 30 to 35 minutes, and I'm gonna check it at 30 minutes to make sure that the bottom underneath part of the focaccia is brown and that the top is also browned. After the focaccia comes out of the oven and is on a cooling rack and cools for a few minutes, I love to grate cheese over it. Gotta cover the whole surface. It's cooled down enough, and I really love how brown the bottom is. You can hear it too, it's like crackling. And to me, that's what I look for in is it done? And I'm excited about this. I have vegetables on it. It's easy, it's a meal. And then I get vegetables and bread together, and I'm excited. It's really delicious. The pepper flakes that I put on it really are coming through, and I'm getting my vegetable allotment for the day. So now I can have like cake or something afterwards. This is something to make all the time. It's really simple. It doesn't require finagling of sourdough starter. You just make a poolish and you make your dough, and you can do anything with it. For the recipe for the focaccia, please click the link below or buy my cookbook.
Yeah, Wyatt, get a nice shot of that floating in the water there for us. So artistic. Look, you're gonna be the next Steven Spielberg.
I don't think he even knows who that is. Do you know who Steven Spielberg is?
Nope.
No.